Oh.
They can't hear you right now.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Couldn't hear me at all? Like, do I start over?
Yep.
I start over.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Quantum Canopesis. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you are not. So I did that backward. I said you, and anyway, here we are. And I know you're going, no more technical problems. No, that was just a button that Carrie, in her drunkenness, forgot to hit. Wait, we don't say Carrie's name. Remember that. Okay, whose name don't we say?
Who what?
See? Anyway, so you may be wondering, did we solve the technical problems? According to the people who solve technical problems, yes. Reality may or may not bear that out. But we're going to find out. And what it turns out it is it was really in the end a very simple problem to solve. It was your sinfulness. That's not true. I'm going to be honest. But basically, when these people who, like, I don't know if they ever talked to women in high school, but I do know this. You put them in front of the computer, and things happen. They start, well, we need to shlubler the mlumlu and run the inline specs through the rotary cuff. And
there's a lot of computer stuff happening here.
Bro, it's witchcraft. It is. It's witchcraft. I'm fully convinced that at some point we're going to get to the heart of the internet and just find out it's a cat.
Nice.
And no one knows why. No one knows how.
Just stepping on buttons.
Right.
Yeah.
And that there's wires all into this cat. And it's just, and there's an internet. I'm convinced.
I can see that.
Yeah. You know it's true. But, so we're excited today to have Adam Martin with us. I'm going to introduce him a little more in a minute. But here's what we got. First of all, tomorrow on the Go with Father Joe, we're going to be in our new church, right? Which is probably, I'm going to make up a percentage, 80% done. And no one can argue with it because it's subjective. And I'm in charge, so I say 80%. Yeah. And we're really fired up about it. We'll do our question and answer segment. And I know yesterday we got all messed up, so I'll just start over next Wednesday, right? We'll start with the angels and saints next Wednesday. Saints and, what do you call those things? Indulgences, right? Although the way I was going yesterday, we're probably just going to get saints. I don't even know if we'll finish them because, what can I say? But one of the things that as a priest I deal with all the time is death, right? It's a huge part of my life. And I've been ordained 22 years. Isn't that crazy?
It's a long time.
It's a long time, and I'm still not bright. Is it working? Uh-oh, I'm getting looks from the people who do things. Oh, okay. The people who do things, do you see them? Like all of a sudden, one of them, I won't say who, Nikki, her eyes got really big, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
Maybe they should put a screen up here.
Yeah, but they want to see this. This is their pay,
yeah, true.
right? This is their pay. They get to gaze upon my countenance.
Beautifully,
why are you,
beautifully worded.
Yes, why are you laughing?
But, too much coffee.
Yeah, death, right? And once I got to Hudson, Manitoba Beach, Adrian, I met some of the best funeral directors I've ever met. The Monahan brothers. One of them was at Eagle, and the other was at Brown Van Hemert. And these cats brought a person to the ministry of death that I hadn't seen in a long time. I'd seen a lot of the business of death at nursing or funeral homes. And I really, in my head, said, these are the best funeral directors I'll ever meet. I did. I thought, okay, I peaked before 50, because I wasn't 50 yet. And then I came here. And
it's an important thing to peak into, knowing a good funeral director at a young age.
Oh, yeah. You got to know that funeral director. That's key, man. Because here's the thing you're going to die.
This is true.
Right?
Yes,
They're going to drop you in the hole in the ground, and everyone's going to go back to the church and eat cheesy potatoes. Right? That's a fact. And here's the key. That's where you come in. And I have, from day one, I was so blown away by how this beautiful man and his amazing wife do funerals that I don't think I knew you 3 months and I said, I want you to do mine.
Well, I appreciate that.
Right?
It was an immense honor.
Was it 3 months?
It was pretty short.
Yeah.
Pretty short.
Because I'd seen it all. I don't mean to be whatever. And I was so touched by your tenderness and your professionalism and none of the coldness, which is an ironic term. No one's going to laugh at that. You're going to laugh?
Yeah, I get it.
You know the old funeral home joke, right? He's the last guy to let you down. Is that
Keep
bad?
them coming.
Yeah.
I've heard one original one in my time.
Hit me.
Okay, we had a lady that worked for us. She went to the church in town.
Okay.
And her at church on Sunday, she was asked by some friends if the funeral home was busy, and she said that we were having an out of bodies experience. That was my only original one.
That's
I
fantastic.
thought it was pretty
Yeah.
crafty. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know for you, if I remember right, it started when you were mowing lawns in the cemetery because you liked the idea of having hundreds of people under you at work.
I mean, it does make you feel important.
Yeah. Have you heard that one?
I have not heard that one, so
Yes!
I got that. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, and I dropped one on my dad, totally unrelated today. I want to share a good joke with God's people before we start talking about, it. So this guy walks into the bar, and he has this huge, colorful, beautiful parrot on his shoulder. I mean, it's just stunning. And the whole bar kind of stops, and the bartender says, "My God, where did you get that?" And the parrot says, "Down at the dock, there's 1 million of them." Isn't that a great joke?
I like that.
So anyway, without further ado, I would like to introduce Adam Martin of
Thank
Martin
you.
Funeral Homes. And so, brother, why don't you tell us about you? Tell us whatever you want. Introduce these beautiful people to this beautiful man.
I'll do a short version, hopefully.
Okay.
I'm from Genesee County.
Woohoo!
Born and raised in Mount Morris, which is just on the other end of the county, near your stomping ground of Montrose.
Yep. We're basically north side of Flint people, which means we can beat anyone in football, but we might not be able to read.
True.
Yes.
We may have a little bit of a screw loose, too.
Right.
Slightly.
Right.
Yes.
Just from all the beating.
So my mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and uncles and cousins were all in funeral service.
Wow.
So I grew up a part of that. I grew up next door to the funeral home. My dad would have grew up in the funeral home, like a lot of stories that people would have heard through the years of funeral directors. Last count, I think we had 12 or 13 licensed Martins over the last 90 years that accumulated like 425 years of experience in funeral service. So I got a lot of, they try to dump a lot of that knowledge into my brain. Some of it sloshes around a little bit, but I wanted, we born and raised Catholic, went to St. Mary's in Mount Morris. The funeral home's been in Mount Morris since 1929. My mom's parents were involved and graduated from St. Mary's in the 30s.
Sweet.
You can still go down and see the old yearbooks that have like 8 pictures in them, and see my grandparents in there. So that's always kind of cool. I didn't want anything to do with funeral service at all.
Okay.
Through college or through high school, I wanted to be a hotel and restaurant manager.
Sweet.
My choices were UNLV, Michigan State, or Cornell.
Michigan State.
As an 18-year-old,
Michigan State.
young Catholic man, I chose Las Vegas. So I moved to...
I respect that. I have to say, I was like, well, you should go to MSU where Jesus went to school. But then I thought, 18-year-old Catholic boy, Las Vegas. Yes!
Yeah, you can do the math from there.
And what year did you enter UNLV?
1992. So
you were there at the height.
right after they had their sanctions. My first year there was their first year that they could rebroadcast their games. Raleigh Massimino was the so I missed the Tark experience.
You didn't get to see like Stacey Ogman or
none of those guys. No. But it was still pretty good.
Sure.
I honestly believe that I chose that school because my mom somehow manipulated me to go there so she could make frequent trips to Vegas to visit her son.
Yeah, she's not stupid. Yeah, I'm going to go see my son.
If she's watching, she knows the truth.
We love you, Mom.
So I went to UNLV, studied hotel and restaurant management. After the second year, I flunked out.
Nice.
I'm an honest guy. Worked at a few jobs. Decided I was going to move home because I wanted to kind of getting 22, 23, sort of get focused. I thought
Sure.
that would resolve that. Came home, started working in the office for my dad.
Okay.
Honestly, at that point, complete transparency, because it was an easy job
Sure.
to get.
Yeah. Not to do, but to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Oh, I
can work
get
in the
you.
office. Here you
Right.
go. Here's a computer. Start typing.
And you would think the opposite, because in terms of mortuary science, people are dying to get in there.
This is true. I have heard that one.
Yeah. Did you find it distracting with all the coughing?
Oh my God.
I'm so sorry.
I don't care. I
I
can
know.
take it.
I'm not going to stop.
Relentless.
I can't
It's
see
okay.
me stopping
It's all
at
right.
any point.
I love this story.
I do too.
I only really took the job because it was easy. I really did not have any interest in funeral service at this point.
Sure.
To be honest with you. After a couple years, I got a job working in the management program at Bob Evans. So I left funeral service and I went there for about a year or so, and I met Jenny at Bob Evans. She was the assistant general manager. I was the manager in training.
I love his wife.
So shortly after 6 months or so, I think we started dating, and it was one time that we were talking and sharing dreams, and my dream is play the rock guitarist. I want everybody singing to my song in Tiger Stadium, type of a dream.
It's just science, yeah.
And she was like, well, my dream is really just to be a soccer mom and to pick up the kids and take them to school and all those types of things. And it sounds cheesy, but legitimately that was the switch in my head that flipped. It was like, okay, if I get my head out of where I can make this happen for the person that I think I love a lot.
Brother.
So
yeah.
She does not take claim for that, but that is the honest to God truth. And
I
so
got
from
you.
there I went back to school. From 2000 to 2002, I finished everything else I needed to do. Went to UNLV, finished my year there, finished my apprenticeship, and was licensed and ready to rock. And
licensed in mortuary science?
Mortuary science.
Okay.
Wayne State University has a program here in Michigan.
Okay.
The only one. The next closest are Ohio, and which not too far, Ohio and Chicago. But,
Right.
I mean, I was
But
driving
we
back.
don't go to Ohio.
No, not at all.
Do they have books in Ohio?
They burned them.
Oh, okay. I assume it's a lot of picture books.
Yeah. So 2006, my wife and I became pregnant with twins, Emily and Miles. We knew very early on in the pregnancy that Miles had many complications and would probably not even make it. But she did carry him to where we, full term for the most part with twins. And he died about an hour and a half after he was born. That obviously changes a couple pretty dramatically, although I think we're quite blessed with Emily.
Yeah.
The same time frame, I was working with my parents to transition the ownership of the funeral home from them to us. So that took place, and in 2016, 17, Emily had been going to St. Mary's in Mount Morris. They closed that school down, and several students came down here, and we had recently moved down here and had opened up a funeral home down here.
It's beautiful.
And so became involved with the church at that point because she was going to come to school here. Have been lucky enough to work with you on the finance council since Monsignor Jerry, honestly, with that, and have been lucky enough to kind of see some of the planning for the church renovation too, which has been very cool. And that's it. I could go into a lot of other details, but there's the history right there.
Nice. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason I asked Adam on here is what I can't remember if it's the part that we didn't get on or if we did, but what struck me almost immediately in watching you work and your beloved was you really enter the grief experience with people while maintaining, okay, stick with me, right? In the Gospel of, there's a story about Jesus being in the boat with the disciples. And at the same time, he provides them with a miracle that would indicate he's above the boat. And I would love to go into that, but then we'd be here all day, and I'm a loser. And so I always think that that's part of priesthood. You're in the boat with people, and you're above the boat, trying to show them where the fish are.
I can relate to that. Yes.
Okay. And that's an important image to me that I've always held. And it seems to me that's what you bring. You are in the grief with them, but you're not enslaved to it. you're able to execute your ministry with great sensitivity and professionalism. And I mean this. And I was just so blessed watching you work. And it really is the difference between a job and a vocation, if you ask me. And what do you, I did that come from Miles? Is that Miles's gift to you?
Well, I think, I think to some degree, you know, when I was learning from my dad, and I would be, you know, have enough experience to say go in, and keep in mind too, when I was learning in Mount Morris, we would be bearing a lot of people that we would consider lifelong family friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know the Martins have been a part of Mount Morris for many years, and there was the Slatterys and the Corcorans and all these big names that were all a part of St. Mary's. So it would be very common for me to meet with you, and I've grown up knowing you, or your brother or sister, or something like that. So a real good relationship with the family. And so my dad would come in and kind of have this just next level of connection with people that I didn't really get at first. And so I would ask him one day, you know, what, you know, I think I'm doing a good job. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to ask the right questions. But when you walk in the room, you know, you have this like other level of like connection with people. I'm like, what is that? And I really expected some big, long, technical, funeral-y, grief expose answer. And he was like, well, he's like, my parents are dead. I get it. And I was like, wow, that was like the most definitive answer. So after our son died, I can absolutely say that if I would be sitting across the table from a family who had lost a baby, a child, an infant, or something like that, not the same, but a similar experience.
Yes.
And I would share that, you know, my wife and I have been through it, you know, not to try and take away from their experience with us, but to just share with them that other people have walked that path and we're still here. And I could see in their eyes that there was a connection there. And then after I lost my dad, you know, that's a huge point of being able to understand really what people are going through. And it really did change fundamentally how I paid attention to what the family was going through after they both died.
Yeah.
And this is not to say that there are not really good funeral directors or people working in things that haven't had their parents die or haven't lost a spouse or anything like that. But to say that it's easier to put yourself in the other person's position because you've had to do it is probably the best way to put it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I do.
So I would agree. I would think that's a long answer for yes.
I love it. No, that's beautiful. And this is what God's people are looking for. I think for most of us, and you have you have half of the priest thing. And I always tell people this. No one calls their priest because everything's going great, right? So we tend to be with people at their lowest. Mm-hmm. But we also get to be there for weddings, for baptisms, for beer.
I'm an Irish Catholic.
Right. Wherever there's 4 Irish Catholics, there's always a 5th.
Nice.
Thank you.
Jameson's.
St. Jameson, pray for us. So I think for you guys, to be crass, there's not that balance out. It's no, you are only meeting people at their worst time, at their time of loss. And I imagine that can be a pretty heavy thing to carry.
It can be. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when we are upstairs and we are working together as a team, you know, we try and have a little bit of fun, okay?
Sure.
Because we're dealing with something that's super serious. So, you know, we'll have different days where we'll try different things for the office, just kind of to shake it up, you know, have some jokes, have a practical joke, hide, you know, in the closet and jump out at somebody occasionally or something like that. Not that that's just running rampant amongst our funeral homes.
No, but you got to break the darkness.
And so we do try to have a level of whatever the word is. I can't come up. Levity. Thank you.
Levity, yeah.
You know, but we have to be serious when it comes to providing a guide to them, because I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. This is just my experience based on my years of experience.
Yeah.
And most people don't, I mean, you guys know this inherently, most people don't think about picking their funeral home until they have to.
Yeah.
And so they don't, by nature, spend a lot of time thinking about what happens in and around that death experience either. And so they do need someone, just like when they come to you or speak to anyone here, that would help them out for planning funerals or for grief afterwards and things. They need a guide.
Yeah.
They need, from a Catholic perspective, there's a lot of times where the person that dies is the practicing Catholic.
Yeah.
And the children aren't always, or they're not familiar with all of the ins and outs of the funeral mass and what they can do and what they can participate in and things like that. Like placing a pall is a very simple example. In my opinion, if you help place your mom or dad's pall at a mass, you'll always remember that.
Yes.
And that's the way it kind of needs to be explained to people, because sometimes people are shy.
Sure.
And participation is a huge, huge thing, especially when it comes to a funeral mass. I think there's lots of little bits and pieces helping present the gifts and things like that. And not just talking about the Catholic perspective, but just the funeral perspective. There are so many things that people don't know.
Yeah.
And they need a good guide.
Yes.
To help them, I guess.
Well, here's one. Are you related to Miles Martin?
That would be my dad.
That's his pop.
Yeah. So confusing. My son's name is Miles Alexander, and my dad would be Miles Tom.
What was your grandpa's name?
Miles Bernard.
All right.
Yeah, I got Adam Miles.
So there's Miles and Miles in your family.
Well, I will tell you something funny. After I had technically purchased the funeral home from my dad.
Yeah.
When we would have sales calls come in, they would say, "Can I speak with Mr. Martin?" And my cousin, who worked there at the time, would be like, "Miles B, Miles T, or Adam Miles?" Because we knew it was a sales call. You can tell after a while, when you answer the phone.
MBMT or
toner salesman, And so they would inevitably say Miles B, because that's the first name you said, and my cousin would go, "He's passed away."
Yeah.
And then they would say, "Oh, well, Miles T, but he's retired." And so then by the time you get to Adam Miles, he's with the family.
Yeah. He's in jail.
It was prison, not jail.
Yeah, prison. That's right. There's a distinction.
But with that, that was our weeding out the sales person.
Oh, I like it.
But the names can be confusing. My grandpa, when he used to go and meet funeral directors, would say he's Miles Martin, Mortuary, Mount Morris, Michigan.
Nice. Miles Martin, Mortuary, Mount Morris, Michigan.
Rough. That's a spicy meatball.
Well, I just actually had this experience on Twitter where the governor had released some order that if you go to a restaurant, you have to write down your name and telephone number so they can track you. And of course, I'm 12. So my first reply was, "Hey, what names could we put on there?" Which I think is hysterical. And I came up with Fitzmatush, chair salesman.
That's a good one.
And my hope was everyone would join in the childish humor, and some did. But there was a couple people, and I realized they'll never get it. I did. But who were just, "Father, how dare you joke about this?" I'm like, what are my choices? Right? A lot of people who were upset, "You're joking about it." I'm like, to be crude, unlike you, I've been with people dying of COVID. Right? And I've been there when I'm doing my part, and laughing is one of the only reliefs sometimes you can find from that darkness. Because my gosh, you have to. And we had a funeral home in Jackson. Those guys were insane. And they would call priests and send them to houses for deaths that weren't happening.
Seriously?
Oh, they were a riot. How addresses that don't exist, right? Like one of my time, 1997. I got it. "Father, you got to head out to Grass Lake." And I'm looking at a map. There's no GPS back then.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, crap, that's a drive." "Are you sure?" "Yep, hustle out there." So they give me the address. I get there, and this is pre-cell phone. So then I had to go find a payphone and call them. I'm like, "Guys, there's nothing at that address." "Well, Father, we're real sure about it." And they give me the address again, but it's different. And anyway, the long and short of it is 20 minutes later, they're just messing with me. It was fantastic. It's fantastic. Funeral home, I'll tell you who. You guys, cops, and doctors and nurses and priests and soldiers joke about some dark things. You gotta. Yeah.
Possibility.
You don't just want to be a stiff about it. So,
Should have brought my little drum.
yeah, I'm telling you, I could do, like, my favorite one was a skit I saw when I was a kid, and I think it was Johnny Carson, where the guy, he gets up and he says, today we're here for the funeral of John Roget, the author of Roget's Thesaurus. And John Roget is dead. He's gone. He's 6 feet under. He's hard as a cart.
I haven't never seen
He's
it.
pushing up daisies. He's calling from the horizontal telephone booth. He's humping the earthworm series. And he kept giving all of these synonyms for death. And then he ends it with, and so we say goodbye. Au revoir. See you later. Take care. And it was...
I have not seen that. That sounds pretty good.
That was first rate. Oh, death is so fun. Okay. So,
If that's Johnny Carson, I'll have to find that. I used to enjoy him.
yeah. Well, do you mind some questions from our studio audience?
Nope.
All right. First of all, did you happen to see the game on Saturday?
Can I see your screen to see if
It's on there. And I'm trying to wonder. I don't know what game they could be talking about. Well, let me see. What game, Nick? What game who did? For example, let's just pick a random team. Michigan State University.
Yeah.
Okay, who did they play this week?
Some other school.
Yeah, some school in Ann Arbor, I think.
I did not see the game.
Okay, we won.
I do not remember what I was
Spoiler.
Spoiler! If you recorded
doing.
it.
Was that again?
Yeah.
Those people?
Yeah, these people, Jesus' favorite school, MSU. Don't they have a mortuary science thing going down?
I don't think so. No.
No, they're hospitality, like what you did in UNLV. Okay, so all kidding aside, we did win. What advice would you give people, no matter how old they are? Like, should people go to the funeral home before? Like, should I go to the funeral home and say I need to start making some plans?
Okay. I said something earlier about how people very rarely think about death, think about their funeral home, things like that until they need it.
Yeah.
Let's pretend it's not about the death of someone. Let's pretend it's about purchasing a coffee cup. Okay, it's not to diminish. Okay, it's just we're talking about a complete different thing. If you wanted to buy that coffee cup, would you make a phone call to one place that your dad bought a coffee cup from 25 years ago, walk in, buy that coffee cup, put the money on the table, walk out, and never look at any other options on the face of the earth?
No.
But people do that with funeral homes all of the time.
Yeah.
And I do believe it is because they're very unfamiliar.
Yep.
They're at kind of, they're never fully prepared for it. In a situation like your mom, where, she had dying of Alzheimer's, there's various stages of preparedness versus a car accident or something tragic or a heart attack. But as my dad was drawn out with breathing problems for a long time, so there was some preparedness there that he was going to die. But I think it's because most people don't think about it, don't want to think about it unless they have to think about it. And I think that's why a lot of people would choose to perhaps call the place that they've always called, which is not wrong.
No.
But I think in today's day and age, there's a lot of different options that families don't know about, or that I know that families want different experiences now.
Yes.
Greatly. I'm very aware of that. And, I think it's best for people to know what their choices are and talk to a couple different people. If you call somebody up and say that my dad just died, the first question out of their mouth first statement should be, "I'm very sorry to hear that. Can you tell me about what happened?"
Yeah.
Not, "Our cremation starts at $14.95.
Right. Right.
To put it bluntly.
Yeah. Oh, bless. And this, I don't mean that. This is why I think you're the best. And it's one of those things priests need to learn too. I can't tell you how many couples in marriage prep, particularly in my last assignment, were refugees from priests who, as soon as they hear we want to get married, it's like this litany of you better nots and you betters, and no congratulations. What a joyful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then
same type of perfect, yes.
Right.
Yes.
To call the funeral home and say my father died. My gosh, I'm so sorry. What happened? right? As opposed to, like you said, well, here's how much it's going to cost. And that to me, I saw that. I did. I saw that in you first time we did a funeral together, and I was blown away.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you. And I think the key, if I'm hearing you right, is preparedness. Like one thing, and again, I know I joke about this, but I'm dead serious. You are going to die. Right? That's just all there is to it. Every human in here is going to die. So why not start setting the table for your family to have to make less choices?
Well, from a pre-arranging perspective, I have never had a family whose loved one pre-arranged. Now you can pre-arrange and prepay, or you can do one or the other. It doesn't really matter.
Sure.
The getting all of the 200 questions that I'm going to ask you about your life 24 hours after your wife dies, and I need this information for a death certificate. It's hard to remember all of those details, and it's a really kind of frankly a crummy time to have to be being asked those things. But we have to file documents and things like that. But I've never had a family who has had everything fully prearranged. After the end of the funeral arrangements, get up and say, I wish Mom would have never done that.
There you go.
Never.
There you go.
Okay, and now on the flip side, if I'm sitting there at a table from someone who didn't prearrange it, and you have a typical group of family members, maybe a spouse and 2 or 3 kids and their spouses as well, so 6, 8, 10 people, someone will inevitably say, we need to make sure we get your mom's stuff taken care of beforehand because we don't want to have to go through this.
Yeah.
And that's firsthand experience, having all of that done so you can, review things.
Yes.
And then make some tweaks as you see fit is by far the best way.
And if I may, a good follow-up on that would be to talk to the priest or the person who does funeral planning at the parish, because you'd be, maybe not, you wouldn't be, you might be surprised at, well, I guess I'm not going to try to say it well.
It's all right.
How little people who don't go to church understand how important church is to the deceased.
Correct.
So I can truly say, and I'm looking at y'all, I promise I'm telling the truth, I have had dozens of times the person in daily mass never misses mass, right? Wheeling in machinery with them in 6 feet of snow, but darn it, they're going to
like
church.
Your dad with the nail story, right?
Right. And they get in there, and then what happens when they die? Their kids are like, oh, we won't do a mass.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because it's inconvenient for them. Or they use human reasoning. Oh, Mom wouldn't want to fuss. This isn't a fuss. A funeral mass is literally about praying for the dead. And now in my last assignment, Tammy Hauser was a goddess. Suzanne Sinkowitz is a goddess. And so they helped me. Whenever we saw someone in the paper, sometimes, guys, they just stopped showing up to church. Mm-hmm. You find out they died and their family never thought, gosh, the place Mom goes every day might want to know.
Yeah.
And so what would we do? We scheduled memorial masses. I can't tell you how many times we did it. We scheduled memorial masses, and we would write the family, we're doing a mass for your mom on this day. It's just a regular mass, but it's for your mom.
In a situation like that too, not that this is applicable every time, but it's certainly applicable often, is like with my dad, me and my wife and my sister and my mom, and we all watched my dad get sick and slowly pass away over a long period of time. It could be very easy for us to be like, well, we don't necessarily want to do anything, and forget that there's all these other people out there too that might still want to do something because they haven't watched the person, like your analogy of they've been showing up every day and now they're just not here anymore. Families don't often think about that or have that conversation about the greater community, I guess, in terms of the person that died.
And remind me when the camera's off to tell you a truly awful story about a wedding that didn't happen, and it's actually hilarious.
All right. Must be awful if it's not on camera.
Dude, this is like only a funeral director or a cop would laugh. Okay, so, sorry, there's a lot of very good questions.
All right.
Oh, come Holy Spirit. Bro, a lot of planning
Yep.
questions. Forgive my brain, folks.
You're fine.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a series of questions.
Okay.
And my assumption is you'll be able to mash them together and make something for us.
I'll do my best.
Okay, screw this up and we're all done with you. Is it less expensive to prepay for a funeral now versus when it happens? What's a good age to prearrange and prepay? What if you pre-plan and then move out of the state?
Okay. Pre-planning in the state of Michigan, every state is different, but in Michigan, you're guaranteed to not have to pay any more money for what you pre-fund today. So I'll just use numbers to make it easy. These are just made up. So you come and you pre-plan a funeral that's $5,000.
Okay.
Okay. You pass away 20 years from now.
It's going to be a lot more than
You're
5
saying, let's pretend your funeral now is $20,000. Let's pretend that your money that you put in at $5,000, which is in Michigan, goes to a third party. So funeral homes can't keep that money, so it's
Really?
protected. Yes. So I go out of business, which God willing will never happen.
Right.
But I go out of business. Your money is just like, oh, Martin's is out of business. I don't have my funeral now. It's with a
Right.
third party. So that's one of the protections that exists.
And then they'll shift it over to...
Another funeral home or out of state, which answers that question. So if you move, okay.
Okay.
Wow. But let's say that $5,000 only grew to $15,000. So there's a $5,000 shortfall because of that guarantee that's a law in Michigan. You don't have to pay any more for it.
Well, praise the Lord.
And now there are a few other things that you that weren't pre-funded for, but if you picked services, casket, vault, register book, those types of things, and it costs $5,000, we by law can't charge you any more for it. It's fully portable, so it can go any other funeral home out of state, things like that. So that answers that question. And then what was the other? There was a third one in there.
Come Holy Spirit. What if the family doesn't agree with the plans?
The family can change the plans unless the person has it through Medicaid for a Medicaid spend down type of situation. If they're going into a nursing home, if it's a Medicaid scenario, they can slightly adjust the plans, but you can't go from like a full traditional 2 or 3 day funeral to a direct cremation, and because of the money that the state's paying, and that goes into a whole bunch of more complicated things. But in most instances, yes, they can change things.
Okay.
Yes.
And bro, what's a good age? Like when should I'm 50, so I assume I should have went in with y'all already, right?
The average age, believe it or not, is about 73.
Yes.
Yeah, average age.
Talk about not study until the day before the final.
Average age is 73. Average percent of That's a good one.
Okay, let me just say this. I'm sorry that Adam said that out of my mouth. He's a puppet master, ain't?
I would say around retirement.
Okay.
It's probably a good time.
Retirement's a good time to get after this.
Yeah.
To go
or
sit
if
down.
you're working with someone to plan for your retirement, like a financial planner, or if you have a trust, or depending on what those details are, it's not a bad idea to have all of that kind of done at the same time, and then you have everything together.
And geographically, brother, I know you're in Mont Morris. I know you're in Grand Blanc. I think you're in Frankenmuth.
Vassar, so near
Vassar.
Frankenmuth, yes.
Okay. And are those your 3 locations, or do you have another?
We have another one. It's north of Vassar in a little town called Fairgrove out in the Thumb. Yeah.
Okay. So just be aware of that. If you're thinking, well, how do I get a man like this? Well, that's how. And if I may, I'm going to throw this out there. If you're in Lenawee County, I think Mark Monahan retired from Eagle, and that's a big loss. I like that cat. His brother Matt is at Brown Van Hemert, last I knew, and he is fabulous. Oh, in fact, I could go on and on. Almost every funeral home I ran into down there was fantastic.
I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with quite a few, but not the Monahans.
Well, there was one, Anderson, and they also just did a bang-up job. And last I knew, I think one of the Marys took it over, which is a big family down there, and lovely, faithful people. But, guys, I think the key is this, and correct me if I'm wrong, it is something you should be thinking about, and excuse the crude term, you should be shopping it out. You shouldn't just assume that the people who buried Mom would be the right people for you, or the people who buried, your cousin. funeral homes have changed in my lifetime quite radically. That's why I
Quite
like
radically.
you guys.
I mean, I've been in really doing it as a career full time since 2000.
Yeah.
Prior to leaving and going to Bob Evans and things, but it's changed immensely in that time, just that 20 years.
And to answer one question here, I don't think I can do this one. If you choose to be cremated, the church has no objection. What she asks is that if possible, you have the body at the funeral and then you cremate afterward. Is that a hardship for you guys?
No,
No,
not at all.
no.
I mean, I think having the body here,
Yeah.
preferably the body, or second, preferably the cremated remains, to have a proper funeral mass is important.
Yeah. One thing I think I'm noticing, but you tell me because I could be off. When I was a kid, it was a full court press visitation.
Yeah.
Because people actually cared took time for the dead. And it seems to me in our postmodern society that there's less and less people at funerals, less and less at funeral homes. But visitations kind of it feels like they're doing it less and less.
Yeah, I know you're correct on that, and I think that COVID, these last 6 to 9 months, has probably fast forwarded that.
Yeah.
Where what I would have anticipated to take place probably between now and say the next 5 years, I think it's all been pushed together. I really do.
And do you mind if I slap some Catholic guilt on them? All right. You should
Works
go.
the best, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Guys, if you're missing someone's visitation because of sports, I'd suggest your priorities are wrong, right? The church gives us what she calls the 7 corporal works of mercy, and they're considered some of the greatest things we can do as people, and one of them is comforting the mourners, right? When I was a kid, truly, and I don't know if you'd remember. May I ask how old you are? I forget.
46.
46. So you remember, when I was a kid, and I never figured this out until I was in college, every week someone died in a car accident. And what it was people were drunk driving like crazy,
Back then,
right?
yeah.
And you never said that. All I knew is all of a sudden people stopped dying in car accidents. Sometimes when I was in high school that happened, right, in the mid-'80s. And so it felt like as a kid, funeral homes were a regular part of my life. And it was young people, old people, blah. We had to wait in line. You'd go to the funeral home and you'd frickin' get in line because it was packed. Because as a society, we valued death. We valued mourning. And whatever things we've gained technologically, I always fret that we've lost that.
Well, I think over the last 2 or 3 years, if you're going to have a funeral or visitation that's packed, in most situations it'd be some type of tragic death.
Yeah.
Unexpected, out of the blue type of a thing. Then they're super busy. But it has changed a lot, and I think, getting that support, going through it personally, everybody in the room here has gone through it personally to some varying degree, whether it's a grandparent or something, and, getting your moral support in the form of a hug or someone crying or someone making you cry or whatever that may be is all a part of that experience, which helps you kind of move forward.
And do you have anything like about, in terms of finances? I'm gonna priest them a little bit, and then I'm gonna hand it off. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The most common thing that rips a family apart is when they start fighting over deceased person's money. And that's not a fight you should be having. You should be willing, and I should be willing, to part with any amount of money that maintains family cohesion, right? And I can't tell you, I've told elderly people this in my office, spend every penny you have, right? When their kids, I get parents in here whose kids are calling them and asking how much I'm going to get. And that's not rare. I'm telling you all. And you might be listening to this and think that's insane. Yeah, you're sane, so you might not think it's normal. I'm telling you it's normal. Where people sit right in that chair right there and tell me their kids are on them about how much money they're going to get. And I always tell that parent, and I'm dead serious, spend every penny. Right? I have watched families rip each other apart about couches and tables and plates. Is there a way, as a funeral director, that you help people? Like, is that part of your duty where you say you need to have this? And is that part of what you do, or not really?
Yes, but walking a fine line.
Yeah, okay.
Is that probably the best way to answer it?
Yep.
The best way to probably avoid that, honestly, would be to have something planned in advance.
Yes.
You know,
And that's
have a game plan. I mean, you know, if we have lots of folks that we bury that have utilize an insurance policy to pay for a funeral. Tons and tons of those are General Motors.
Oh, sure.
Okay, we're in Flint, Michigan.
Yep.
Okay, tons of General Motors policies. I could speak to the detail of how a GM policy works like an insurance salesperson.
My bro.
Okay. Less than 5% of the people coming in know what the death benefit is or who the beneficiary is.
Okay.
Less than 5%
Okay.
of their mom or dad's insurance information.
Yikes.
And that's been that way for 20 years.
So they should know that.
They won't, though.
Yeah.
I mean, preparing in advance will help.
Yeah.
I want the plates. Okay, I want the knickknacks, and those types of things. And it goes into that death and grief and mourning and changing your state of mind, and things become more. Extreme's probably not the best word, but
it is.
Cry more. Or you get if you were a person that was got a temper, you probably get angry more. That type of a thing, because everything's exposed, and mentally you're trying to cope with somebody who just died.
Yeah, and in my experience, it comes down to control, right? When someone dies, that is something we have no control over.
Correct.
And I always warn families of grief in this. You're going to try to control everything. You're going to catch yourself in fights you know you don't belong in. And if you pause, you'll see, oh, I'm trying to control something. That's not mine to control. Mm-hmm. And I give a lot of people in grief that advice. Just be conscious. Because here's the thing. A year later, you might be able to look and go, oh, what was I doing? But you'll still have the emotion. Right? Even when you can intellectually process, you'll still be mad at so-and-so for such and such. Yeah. It's really, the brain is an interesting thing. We are programmed to remember pain, right? It's how we survive. But, okay. So, come Holy Spirit. What changes? Brother, what cultural changes have you seen in your many years of serving the mourning and the dead?
I would say you alluded to it briefly about people coming to visitations and whatnot, and I think how to articulate it the best would be the fact that everybody's much more spread out now as a society. Sure. That has a great deal to do with it. So I didn't realize we were disrobed.
It's hot, yeah.
So when my grandma died in the 1993, everybody that would have came to her funeral lived within 30 miles. Sure. Probably. Family-wise, cousins, nieces, nephews, kids, all of those, grandkids, all of those things. When my dad died, my sister's in New York, cousins in Tennessee, cousins in Texas and stuff like that. So that, has dramatically changed the amount of, and I think that's why you see shorter and shorter. Okay. Or you think, and there's less apt now for lots of businesses to give family members more time off when someone has died. Yeah. I don't know the details, and that's not something I've ever tracked, but I know that's a fact. Like 20 years ago, they'd be like, okay, you got a week. Go take care of your mom and your dad's business. And now it's like, okay, you have Thursday afternoon and Friday. We'll expect you back here on Monday, type of a thing. That has a lot to do with it. And attention span has a lot to do with it. Being busy with other things, prioritizing. But I think the geographic location of people probably was the first step in really changing that.
That's true.
Interesting.
We became super mobile. You know, I think of at one point one of my dearest friends has, I think, 8 billion children, and after Mass, another mom came up to her and said, "Oh my gosh, how do you do it? I have 2 and I'm dying." And she said, "Well, I'm lucky. My mom is 3 miles away. My husband's mom is 5 miles away. I've got 800 siblings nearby. I'm not doing this on my own." But boy, that is such a rarity.
It is.
You know, mom's over there, dad's over there, especially with the just absolute explosion of divorce. Mom's over there, dad's over there, and he's got a new wife who's got a, oh my gosh, yeah, it makes it so hard.
Well, I mean, I consider myself, you know, I live here. My mom lives in Otisville, and Jenny's mom lives in Burt, which is out in your territory.
Oh, heck yeah. The Burt Bees.
That's considered close now.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, you know, in Mount Morris, riding my bike around the neighborhood, Montrose was super far away.
Yeah. Thank God.
It's not, true.
Yeah, you should praise the Lord.
Build a wall, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Build the wall. That was it. It was around. Actually, what we did was we used landfills for walls.
This is true. Yes,
Yeah.
I've been to that landfill many times.
If you've been to Montrose,
you have to do every job at the funeral home as you come up in the family. So
Oh,
I've
sure.
been there with, you know, bees' nests buried in, you know,
yeah.
lawn chunk from last year.
Oh, yeah. We had, in fact, someone told me, and I don't know if this is true, there's actually more landfills in Montrose than there are police officers. How about that?
Wow.
Isn't that great?
Should be like on the sign coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now nobody in Montrose is ever coming to my funeral because of that
No,
comment.
no, we're importing garbage from Canada. We're like, we want Canadian garbage.
Yeah.
Brother, what is
Brent
it?
Run, is that it?
What is it?
The Brent Run landfill, is that the name?
Yeah, there's one. There's Brent Run landfill, and then there's Pollards, and yeah, there's just a million of them. Yeah, more
Landfills and blueberries. Is that
Yeah.
it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And bars. 13 bars
That's a lot of bars.
in a town of about 1,100 people. That's a skill.
That is
My tribe. So, brother, what is what is natural burial?
Okay, natural burial would be something that you would not have a body embalmed.
Okay.
You would
What
go
do you do
to a
about the
cemetery.
smell?
Well, it would be something more like a cremation where you probably move a little quickly with the person, or maybe
Okay.
use refrigeration or ice or things like
Sure.
that for a period of time to kind of slow that process down. There are cemeteries that have what they call natural burial. Make it easy as possible. Basically, it would be like going back to your decomposing as naturally as God would have intended it to be.
Okay.
So there are things now that you can buy, containers that you can use, burial shrouds. They're all natural, no synthetic fibers in them. You'd go to a cemetery, you'd have a grave opened by hand, no electrical equipment or anything like
Really?
that. You'd have them lay them down in the ground, just put dirt back on, no caskets, no vaults, no containers
And
or
that's
anything
legal?
like that. Yeah, there's 2 cemeteries in Michigan. One of them out towards Metamora, and one of them, and I'm not sure exactly where in Oakland County. I was at a cemetery in California about 15 or 16 years ago that was in San Francisco, looked out over the Pacific Ocean on top of a mountain, and they had everybody who was buried there was noted by GPS.
Shut up.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
All completely, so you're walking through and it looks like you're just walking through a forest,
Yeah.
but, people are buried here and there through it, so.
Have you ever had this?
No chemicals or anything, as natural as possible is probably the best way I can throw that out.
There's
No
a lot of
headstones.
jokes.
No headstones, no. Now, again, there are varying degrees. There are full natural cemeteries. There are pseudo ones that have different rules where you could have a headstone or something like that.
And you can do something about the smell without formaldehyde?
In most situations like that, families would probably choose not to have any type of public visitation or a service and maybe just do something at the cemetery.
Because humans go south quick.
At the funeral home, we would utilize dry ice and things like that if they did want a public
the smoke.
visitation. Yeah, we get fans and it's blown out. Yeah. It's like Halloween.
This is what I want. I would want you to pack my casket with dry ice, and then I want like smoke coming out of it. Yes, and lasers. Dude, no,
Yeah.
here's what I want.
You have your hand so you can high five people.
Have you ever had anyone ask you for a funeral pyre?
I have not.
Dang, this is what I pine for. And I know we can't. The church has very strict rules about this. But if the church didn't, I'd want either a funeral pyre or a Viking burial.
Yeah.
Right, put me in a boat, stack it up with dry wood, and have someone shoot fire arrows at it.
That doesn't work.
I know, the church wouldn't allow it.
No, it doesn't
anyway.
work. The flames don't get hot enough.
Oh, I know, but the fish get a nice meal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it turns out the church...
Now, there's also a term called excarnation. So you got cremation, and these different terms. There's excarnation, which is of the beliefs in some cultures where they would just put someone completely naturally out, like on a cliff face or something
sure,
like that.
the Mongols do that.
Yeah, type of a thing, yeah.
I know that for the Mongols, one of the ways you honor the dead was you took them on top of a mountain and just left the corpse there for the eagles and the wolves.
Yep.
You know,
excarnation.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how long does that take?
A long time.
Yeah. Well, it depends how big the eagle is.
Yeah.
You know, if he's feeling a bit peckish, get it?
For concern
Come
of
on.
viewership, I'm not going to answer that question until after. It's probably
I already
too.
told him I'm leaving the camp.
Well, did you see? I freaked people out on Twitter talking about when I was with the East Lansing police, we would find people.
Yeah.
And it is not an urban legend. It is true. Dogs will die of starvation.
Mhm.
Cats will dig right in.
This is true.
You would see the person
Well, cat,
dead and gone, and the
a
dog
cat-
laying next to him starved to death. Cat's just over there like, hey, this is great.
Well, a dog is an omnivore. A cat is a carnivore. It must have meat to live. That's the reason.
I think it's because cats are demons.
Well, they're controlling the internet, remember?
Right? Thank you. So on that light note, let's see if we got any more. Are we horrifying people?
Probably, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this-
If
I'm
you,
fascinated.
My wife, I'm going to
What's
go
that?
home.
I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm going to go home and my wife's going to have this list of, like, you shouldn't have said that.
I know. And let me
That
just
was-
say
that
this:
was-
all the things Adam shouldn't have said,
See,
I said them.
She was invited to come be
I
in the
love
audience.
her.
I know. She was invited, but we had Emily just had her wisdom teeth out, and she's been back to school. But so yeah, we
And
tried
like all of them.
juggle. Yeah, she had all 4 wisdom teeth, bone fragments, and then had to have her 12-year molars repositioned.
We just invite spouses
Yeah.
to take the liability off of us.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. Adam really should not be left unattended. Yeah. Okay. Does he bury? Oh, yeah. Okay. So yes, Adam will help us bury blessed. Oh, and I have some for you. That is. Thank you. Whoever asked this question, do you allow people to bring you blessed items to slide into the ground before we make it done? Yeah. So yes, if you take your, nothing huge. I mean.
No, we would always
medals
check with the family. Families are usually very honored to have that. Yes,
I got stuff
very
for
honored.
you, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this for the Amish or people striving to be green?
I would more the green, more that kind
Oh,
of
the natural burial you're
that
talking
movement
about.
of society would be very much for them. Yes,
I do want to point out green is spelled wrong.
it's hard.
I'm furious. Carrie, I'm cutting your pay.
Good.
She seems distressed.
Not one bit.
Not one bit. Okay. Oh, wow. Is it possible to be buried on your own property?
Yes, however, there are lots of little hoops you have to jump through, and
Yeah.
I am not familiar with
And
them.
I'll bet you the state wants her little...
Correct. I have had general conversations with families in the past, and I mean very as general as we're having right now.
Right.
And told them, that they would have. We talk with your local municipality, and you have boards that are voting on things, and the time frame that you might have to wait for a decision to be made. I mean, I'm sure every time there was something that needed to be done with the church, that the city council called a special meeting and met, right?
Oh, of course. All we had to do was wait till the next meeting.
Right. Well, and so imagine that to have a vote.
Yeah.
To see if someone could be buried on, and I'm not even sure if that's how it happens.
Sure.
To be honest with you, I've never had someone push it so far that I've actually had to really research it greatly.
You have to dig deep.
Yeah, in your yard.
And what would the Catholic Church
Get it?
say?
The check.
Huh?
Okay.
What would the Catholic Church
Yes.
say?
Oh, Catholic Church would say no.
Yes.
By the way,
Yeah.
thank you. I knew that. No, the church, it has a buy-in on this. She wants us, buy-in theologically, not financially. She wants us to make sure bodies are put in sacred, consecrated ground that is permanent, sacred, consecrated ground. I was going to make a joke about people walking all over you. When did embalming become common?
Civil War era.
Civil War era.
Yes.
I know this is crazy. The Egyptians were doing it.
Absolutely. In modern society, it would be the Civil War era.
That's 1861.
Honestly, it's more of a Western civilization type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So by Western civilization, Europe, Americas, Australia a little bit and things like
Australia.
that. Most other parts of the world, if you're talking about all of Asia,
Yeah.
you're talking 99.9% cremation rate for thousands of years.
Sure.
Burial's never been in
Yeah.
the question. And so the Civil War, when bringing back soldiers that would have died at various points during the Civil War to their homes, would have been considered the general era of the modern embalming and what we do now. Yeah.
It's crazy to think of, right? But the Egyptians embalming, right? Get this, guys. You and I are closer in the timeline to Julius Caesar, right, than Julius Caesar was to the building of the pyramids.
Yeah.
That's how advanced the Egyptians were, right? That's how crazy. And all we know is that at some point, the Egyptians call it the invasion of the sea peoples. Some army appeared out of nowhere and burned through Egypt and ended their technological supremacy, right? But before that, they were doing extremely, we would say,
Advanced thing. Very
they
advanced
were
thing.
extremely
With
advanced.
anatomy and things.
Fascinating stuff. But yeah, we Westerners that caught on Civil War, hey, that's cool stuff. Okay, well, brother. It is time to go. I went way over. Sorry, but
Man, it's about time.
Yeah, it's something we've just been dying to talk about.
It's a good one.
I love death. God help me. I just do. I have a rosary in my car where all the Our Father beads are little skulls.
That's gonna be.
I just can't wait. Get me home, Jesus. Although with my luck, I'd be like, hey, welcome. Good news, you made it to heaven. Bad news, it's an election year here. You have elections here? That'd be my luck. So, anyway, brother, thank you for what you do. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for being here on our show. And I'm honored to call you a friend. I'm honored to be your priest. And I just thank Jesus for you. I do, and I love your family. He took us to a Tiger game, 2 seasons ago. We couldn't go this season because of the COVID. Mm-hmm. I've been telling them they have to say the COVID. You can't just say COVID. But we have a nice Spiegel gift certificate for you after the show. I don't know what that means.
Sean said your jokes are pretty stiff.
Nice. Is that Sean Larkin?
Sean Quinn.
Sean Quinn. Oh, he's always got good jokes. Good jokes. Sean was a 6:30 a.m. mass guy at St. Thomas in Ann Arbor, East Lansing. I didn't mean to say that place. I don't even know. Are there Catholics in Ann Arbor? Are there Christians there?
Christians.
Okay, we've made enough friends today.
Okay. So between our death jokes, ripping on Ohio, and ripping on the little
Montrose.
Montrose. Oh, Montrose people love this. This is our tribe. That's our humor. But I'll do a closing prayer now.
Yes, sir.
But just know, I would think it important for you to head to your local funeral home, do some interviewing, see where you want to go, and then start making those gosh darn plans. And if you're a Catholic, you should make sure that in the plans you get a funeral mass. Even if your kids just, they can't trump that, right? And make sure, if you would, that if you intend to do cremation, please indicate you would like the cremation to take place after the funeral. And again, don't worry. If you've already done it wrong, it's fine, okay? It's this way we think is better as a church. But with that, I think I'll wrap us up with a prayer.
Yes, sir.
All right. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Jesus, thank you for Adam and for his beautiful family. Thank you for how they take care of your people who mourn. And thank you for how they take care of the dead with great dignity. What we ask for, Lord, is a stronger conviction in our heart to comfort those who mourn, to pray for those who are struggling with grief, and to honor our beloved dead. In this month, Lord, where Catholics particularly focus on death and dying, we ask for the grace to live well, so that whenever you call, we're ready to come home. For all of the people or circumstances in our life that we worry or fret about, we give them to you. And we love you, Lord, and we trust you. And may Almighty God bless all of you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Hey, thanks so much for coming, guys. We will see you tomorrow in our new stunning church, which isn't done yet. And we'll do our question and answer. Take care. God bless.
Bye.